Hi, I'm Micah Halpern. Thank you for joining me today as I do some thinking out loud. Our first segment is called Background Briefing. The first thing I've been thinking about is Mamdani, Zohran Mamdani. How on earth have we gotten to this stage where a person like Mamdani is a candidate for mayor of New York City? It's not Zohran Mamdani himself that scares me so much. It's the people who support him that scares me so much. The rapid and popular rise of the smooth-talking relative newcomer, anti-almost everything American, I simply do not understand. And the more I speak to people, the more I hear that more and more New Yorkers, and what New Yorkers like to call out-of-towners, support him. They support Mamdani. Mamdani has made his points of view very clear. There are no secrets, no mysteries. He's only 34 years old, so whatever he has said or written on Twitter, a favored forum for his thoughts and convictions, are current. They're very current. They're neither composed nor penned that long ago. I'm baffled by those in the general population so willing to support him. I'm baffled by those who openly support this candidate's open hatred of Jews. And the most baffling of all are the Jews who tell me that this November they plan on voting for Zohran Mamdani. Given Mamdani's views on just about everything, how or why could or would any Jews even contemplate supporting him, let alone proudly announce their support for him? He supports Hamas. On numerous occasions, he has refused to condemn Hamas and their actions on October 7th. He will not condemn the cliches that globalize the Intifada. He'll make excuses about them. That alone should render him non-kosher for any Jew, even those who enjoy their morning bacon and eggs. He won't condemn the murder of Jews, and still there are many Jews of New York who support him. How and why did this synapse come about? There's one qualification, and I must point it out. Of the amazingly large number of Jews looking forward to a city run by Mayor Mamdani, that was tongue-in-cheek, not one of them is an Orthodox Jew. It shocked me. This is not merely my personal ad hoc observation. While I have not found an Orthodox Jew who supports him, neither have the polls. Here are some of the polling numbers, and they're worth looking at very carefully. According to a poll of 1,453 adults, 152 of whom were Jewish, conducted between July 16th and July 24th of this year by Zenith Research, Public Progress Solutions poll, Mamdani received 43% of the vote, Cuomo 26%, Adams 15%, Curtis Sliwa 9%. More specifically, among Reform secular Jews, 55% would vote for Mamdani. Along the age breakdown of the same people, 18 to 44, 67% would vote Mamdani. In the 45 to older group, only 25% would vote. And that's all the Jewish issue. According to the Quinnipiac poll in February 27th through March 3rd, Mamdani was only getting 8% of the overall, not the Jewish vote, overall vote. Continuing to analyze the general vote, the overall vote, again, not the Jewish vote, voters in a Marist poll of 3,383 likely voters conducted between May 1st and May 8th, 14% said that they would vote for Mamdani for mayor, only 14%. In 2 months, he went up 6%. 412 likely Jewish Democratic primary voters were polled by the Honan Strategy Group during the same approximate period, May 15th to May 18th. Their results were not surprising. Mamdani was rising but not winning among Jews. It was Cuomo with 31%. That was in May. Mamdani only had 20%, Lander 18% of the vote. And if you approach it by denomination, looking only at one candidate, Zohran Mamdani, Orthodox Jews 0% would vote for him, conservative Jews 14%, Reform Jews 27%. Of course, polls are not votes. The only poll that really counts is on election day. But these numbers should not be ignored. This kind of swing has determined by the July Zenith poll, placing Mamdani in first place with 43% of the Jewish vote. It's July. A whopping 17% ahead of Cuomo now. Nothing short of mind-boggling and scary. The answers as to why any voter, no less a Jewish voter, would throw their precious democratic vote behind Mamdani can be paralleled to the popularity of AOC. Young, different, attractive, articulate, passionate, and an outsider. An outsider. Too many people are disappointed with the status quo and with the old-time party politics, with the party line. Being an outsider is considered a plus to many. As an aside, outsider status was a significant factor in Donald Trump's electoral success. Voters are not looking at policy. They're not looking about whether Mamdani promises this or that, can even be turned into policies at all. They're not looking at his past, his tweets, his interviews, or his writings. They're not looking at his experience. Voters who side with Mamdani against their personal and collective interests are seeing something new and enticing in him. It is the electoral equivalent to a marketing fad. Something new that everyone is talking about. Mamdani, Mamdani, Mamdani. A near ironclad rule in voting is that youngsters don't vote, who as a rule compose a very small component as a result of that, of the larger actual voting population. Do not even register. They don't even send in absentee ballots. They don't go to the polls on election day. The exception to that rule was Obama's first election. The figures we just saw show that older people and Orthodox Jews have not been swayed by the Mamdani fad. Mamdani's message is everywhere on new media. That's why, on social media. That is where young potential voters get their information. On that media, his message is practically unchallenged. If his message continues to go unchallenged, and if young people actually do buck the history and go out to vote, then Mamdani will secure a landslide victory in New York City as mayor. Democracy is a stable, conservative movement with a small c. It does not marry well with temporary fads. It adjusts and changes slowly so as to avoid huge revolutions. But today's voting public, especially young people, like immediate change. That's what makes Mamdani so enticing and so popular. That's what scares me so very much. That's the fight we need to wage, and wage it quickly. If this can happen in New York City, it can happen anywhere. Time is running out. Coming up next, Points of View. First up is a column from Ynet, and it was published on August 1st, 2025, and it's entitled, When Hamas Crosses a Red Line in the Arab World. Subtitled, Analysis, Hamas official Khalil al-Haya sparks diplomatic backlash in Egypt and Jordan, with direct appeals to their citizens crossing a red line by inciting internal unrest and undermining national efforts to support Palestinians. It's written by Lior Ben-Ari. This is how Lior begins. Hamas senior official Khalil al-Haya's recent statements have provoked anger in Egypt and Jordan, marking another instance where the terror group's leaders have overstepped diplomatic boundaries. While both nations tolerate Hamas's commentary on Gaza or criticism of Israel, direct appeals to their citizens or critiques of their leadership cross a red line. Addressing the Egyptian people and leaders, al-Haya asked, Are your brothers in Gaza starving at your border so close to you? He also urged Jordanians to continue the popular uprising, intensify efforts to stop crimes, and prevent Israel from dividing Al-Aqsa. Ben-Ari now explains how Hamas stepped way out of line by appealing to the residents of Jordan and Egypt and bypassing the leadership of those countries. It is critical, she says, that we understand this. And so, as she writes, it's important because it violates potential issues and may raise protests in the streets. She writes, Egypt and Jordan, keen to maintain their image as supporters of the Palestinian cause, have engaged in global diplomatic efforts through an Arab Islamic committee led by foreign ministers Badr Abdel Ati and Ayman Safadi, alongside providing aid, airdrops, and medical care for Gazans. However, they firmly reject any incitement to internal unrest. A Jordanian official speaking after al-Haya's speech expressed frustration, saying Jordanians value their country's efforts to support Palestinians and feel Hamas's words ignored these efforts. Instead of gaining sympathy, they offended the people. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, in a speech addressing the Gaza's war end, indirectly rebuffed al-Haya, calling on U.S. President Trump to intervene. While Jordan's king emphasized, Gaza needs a strong Jordan, warning that disrupting Jordan's stability harms Palestinian interests. Luar Ben Ari now explains the larger context and concludes that this interference is neither wanted nor accepted and will hurt Hamas and the Palestinians in Egypt and in Jordan. She writes, "This isn't the first time Hamas has stirred controversy. In November 2023, a senior official, Khaled Mashal, angered Morocco by urging its citizens to demand an end to normalization with Israel, seen as interference in the kingdom's affairs and the attempt to undermine King Mohammed VI. Both Egypt and Jordan prioritize national security over Hamas's rhetoric. Jordan banned the Muslim Brotherhood's activities in April, while Egypt vigilantly maintains internal stability. Protests for Gaza in both countries serve as controlled outlets for public sentiment. But when Hamas breaches these boundaries, both nations swiftly remind the group of its place." This is an excellent and insightful piece, which shows the divisions and the differences within the Arab world. It's important to recognize the nuance and the distinction and differences across the Arab world. They are not united. Next up is a column from the Wall Street Journal, and it's entitled "Gaza Starvation Photos Tell 1,000 Lies." Subtitled, "Hamas Propaganda Exploits Seriously Ill Children and Western Media Go Along." It is written by Eitan Fischberger, published on July 30th, 2025. The purpose of this column is to show just how much aid has been brought into Gaza by Israel and how Hamas is telling the world a lie, and the international media gulps it up. This is how Eitan begins. "Over the weekend, I embedded with Israel Defense Forces in Gaza, where I saw the enormous quantities of humanitarian aid the United Nations has been refusing to distribute. What struck me most were the thousands upon thousands of pounds of baby food baking under the Middle Eastern sun, jar after jar of mashed carrots, pureed potatoes, and fruit blends. This food could have gone to children like Mohammed al-Matah. Those who don't know his name will almost certainly recognize his face. Pictures of him, gaunt and fragile, staring vacantly into the camera, were plastered across the pages of major media outlets last week, from the New York Times and Politico to the BBC. Mohammed, more than anyone else, was made the face of a devastating allegation that Israel is deliberately starving Palestinian children. That wasn't the truth about Mohammed, nor is it the truth about what's happening in Gaza. Mohammed suffers from cerebral palsy, according to British investigative journalist David Collier, who uncovered a local charity's May 2025 report mentioning the boy's condition. CNN, for its part, briefly noted in an offhand comment during a broadcast that Mohammed suffers from a, quote, muscle disorder, unquote, before dropping the point from later reporting. Another notable omission from virtually all media coverage were the photos of Mohammed being held by his mother with his older brother standing nearby. Both mother and brother appear healthy and fed. Eitan Fischberger now further explains the international media ran with the story that is simply not true. Children in Gaza are malnourished and starving, noted an unrepentant July 29th editor's note in the New York Times. The paper admitted it had since learned new information and updated our story to add context about Mohammed's pre-existing health problems. That context would have been more useful before publishing his image on the front page and fueling global outrage. Mohammed isn't the only recent case of babies afflicted with terrible illnesses being exploited to promote a false narrative that Israel is intentionally starving Gazan children. Kogat, the Israeli military unit that coordinates humanitarian aid in the Palestinian territories, tweeted Monday about a viral photo of a different child, Osama al-Rakab. Like Muhammad, Osama looked emaciated, and critics claimed that he too was starving due to Israel's actions. These critics include Dr. Munir al-Borish, director of Hamas-run Gaza Ministry of Health, who tweeted that Israel was trying to mislead public opinion by claiming that he was suffering from other illnesses, not hunger, and that what is happening is not propaganda, but a real famine. Yet, according to Kogat, the previously confirmed by the boy's mother to the Associated Press, Osama actually suffers from cystic fibrosis. On June 12th, Israel coordinated his evacuation to Italy, along with his mother and brother, so he could receive medical treatment. Tragic images rightfully stir emotions. The Kogat Post said, but when they're misused to fuel hatred and lies, they do more harm than good. These numbers are huge. Listen to the numbers. Eitan describes them so well. He describes what's happening. They're mind-boggling, the numbers. He continues, that harm was clear to me in Gaza, where I stood surrounded by nearly 600 trucks worth of food, water, and diapers, all ready to be delivered. The UN refused to do the job, saying it couldn't operate safely with Israeli protection. Instead, it asked that security be provided by the Gaza Blue Police, a euphemism for Hamas's internal security forces. This was the same group the UN has repeatedly accused of stealing aid, including in October 2023, only weeks after the Hamas-led massacre. In addition to rejecting IDF protection, the UN has declined to cooperate with the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, despite its being backed by the United States. The result is that food meant for children like Muhammad is left to rot. Put simply, the UN would rather work with Hamas than the Israelis or the Americans. The list goes on, and the amount of food brought into Gaza is enormous, and more than enough food to feed at least 2 times the population. Listen to what Eitan writes. Since October 7, 2023, Israel has coordinated and facilitated the entry into Gaza of more than 1.86 million tons of humanitarian assistance, more than 78% of which has been food. The population of Gaza is 2.1 million. The only comparable effort in modern history is the Berlin airlift, 1948-49, during which the Allies delivered 2.3 million tons of supplies to 2.5 million West Berliners over 15 months. Even then, the aid was going to an Allied population. There is no historical precedent for a military providing the level of direct aid to an enemy population that Israel has provided to Gaza, writes John Spencer of the Modern World Institute at West Point. But these facts rarely break through the noise. Instead, the world sees a photo of a suffering child, assumes what news editors want them to assume, and then shares it without asking questions. The context is stripped away. There is real suffering in Gaza, but when that suffering is exploited for propaganda, and when humanitarian systems are paralyzed by politics and ideology, it is the most vulnerable, like young Muhammad al-Matawak, who pay the price. Thank you, Eitan Fischberger, for bringing this to our attention. Hopefully all of us knew this, but those who didn't, now you know the details even more so. The entire story is so upsetting because Hamas is spouting lies and the world is so keen on accepting it. Again, thank you. Coming up, commentary through cartoons where pictures tell the story. I want to show you 8 cartoons today. Many of the cartoons are about the canard that Israel is starving the Gazans. And as Menachem Begin used to say, Goyim kill Goyim, and they blame the Jews. This first picture is a depiction of Israel delivering supplies. Paper towels. As we just read, 78% of the supplies are food, 22% are supplies like paper towels and medical supplies. It shouldn't be laughed at. Next up is an awful depiction of Bibi eating fried chicken and saying, famine schmammin. Who are you going to believe, me or a bunch of child actors? This next cartoon shows a child of just skin and bones. We have a lot of those in Gaza. It's been the common theme throughout the cartoonists this week. This next cartoon is a picture of a person bent over. His body looks like a skull. It's skin and bones. Similar kind of image. It's very disturbing. Next up is a cartoon that depicts a starving child. The spoon is an Israeli jet feeding him. Gaza is burning in the background of this cartoon. This cartoon depicts a woman crying and carrying her son. Her tears are in the same shape as the parachutes of food aid. Next up is Bibi fishing, sitting on the body bag, fishing in the bloody waters of Gaza. And finally, this last cartoon is of two men in Gaza going for food, but dodging the bullets at the same time. He says, "It's your time now." In a moment, more by own perspective and a few predictions. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed the footage of hostages Ram Bezhalvalsky and Eviatar David in the video. He expressed shock at the condition and said, "I called the families, embraced them on behalf of myself and my wife. You see them rotting in the dungeon, but the Hamas monsters have thick, meaty arms." Netanyahu added that Hamas is starving them just as the Nazis starved the Jews. Hamas doesn't want a deal. It wants to break us through these horror videos, through the false horror propaganda it spreads throughout the world. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz expressed horror at the signs of life from hostage Ram Bezhalvalsky and Eviatar David, who appeared in deteriorated physical condition. On his X account, he wrote that Hamas is torturing hostages, terrorizing Israel, and using Gaza's population as human shields. Merz added, "Hamas must not be part of Gaza's future. The release of hostages is a precondition for a ceasefire. Israel should not react to Hamas's cynicism and continue to provide humanitarian aid." This is a new one. The Red Cross addressed the conversation that they had with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. During the conversation, the head of the International Red Cross Committee delegation in Israel, Julian Larison, quote, expressed the organization's concern regarding the videos of Israeli hostages in Gaza captivity published in recent days, and said he understands the pain of the hostages' families. It was also reported that the Red Cross is shocked by the horrifying videos that were published. They are harsh evidence of the life-threatening situation in which the hostages are being held. They should be given humane treatment and proper conditions. They urgently need medical care they require. U.S. House of Representatives Speaker Mike Johnson visited the Western Wall in Jerusalem, where he said he is grateful for the privilege to be in Israel, specifically on the day we recognize the destruction of the temple twice in history. "It's an emotional time for us to be at the Western Wall," he added. "My prayer is that America will always stand with Israel in peace to Jerusalem." Syrian Observatory for Human Rights reported that at least 2 Druze were killed in clashes in As-Suwaida in southern Syria, despite the ceasefire that's supposedly in place. Batisma Hayat Saeed, a Muslim nurse in the Netherlands, has been accused of threatening to administer lethal injections in Israeli patients under her care. In a disturbing Instagram comment, she wrote, "You know what I'm doing with Zionists? Giving them an extra injection as a nurse specialist, letting it go to heaven." The comments were exposed by Israeli social media activist Max Weifer, a 25-year-old English teacher from Ashdod. The exchange began when Lital van Sternbergen, an Israeli-Dutch woman living in the Netherlands, responded to a post by far-right politician Geert Wilders, who warned the country's supposed radical Islamization by 2050. Saeed replied to Wilders, saying, "It's not our dream. It will happen by 2027. Van Sternbergen countered in Dutch, "Your dream is our nightmare, but people wake up from nightmares. Our Netherlands, our Israel." And to end on a positive note, Anastasia Gormbeko has advanced to the finals in the 50-meter breaststroke at the World Swimming Championships. Gorbenko finished third in her heat with a time of 30.30, breaking the Israeli record for this event. She reached the semifinals after finishing 11th overall with a time of 30.29. 0.60. We've been thinking out loud about a lot today. Now that you know what I've been thinking, let me know what you're thinking. Email me at micah@jbstv.org. Tweet me at Micah Halpern. Tell me what you think. Before we end, let me leave you with one piquante piece of information. On August 2nd, 2025, Ghazi Hamad, a member of Hamas's political bureau, said in an interview on Al Jazeera Network, which is in Qatar, that international recognition of a Palestinian state is an outcome of October 7th attack. This is what the Arab world hears and sees. Many in the world in general, but the Arab world especially, see this and are convinced by it. This is what they are thinking and why. This is how they view October 7th. Pay close attention to this video, which is presented to us by Memory.
بدي أقول باختصار شديد وكلام واضح، السلاح يعني القضية الفلسطينية، سلاح مساوي للقضية. احنا تربينا منذ أن كنا صغارا، ما بتكلم عن حركة، كل أبناء الشعب الفلسطيني وكل أبناء الفصائل الفلسطينية الذين حملوا السلاح وحاربوا وقاتلوا وجاهدوا واستشهدوا ورووا الأرض بدمائهم، كان دائما هذه قوتنا الأساسية في مواجهة هذا الاحتلال. ولذلك كان هناك إجماع وطني فلسطيني على هذا الموضوع. لا أحد من أبناء الشعب الفلسطيني الآن يقول بأن المقاومة يجب أن تنتهي، لأنه تسليم السلاح يعني نهاية المقاومة، تسليم السلاح يعني نهاية القضية الفلسطينية. نحن كأبناء الشعب الفلسطيني لن نسلم سلاحنا، يفهم هذا الكلام، ولا حتى يعني بيقولوا طلقة فارغة، هذه تأتي في إطار الحل السياسي، لكن أن نسلم لإسرائيل ما تحلم في هذا الموضوع إطلاقا. الفلسطينيين لا يفعلوا شيء غير قانوني، إحنا نقاتل ونحارب من أجل أن نصل إلى حريتنا، لسنا إرهابيين ولا نستخدم أي أسلوب إرهابي، من حقنا أن نقاتل. حتى 7 أكتوبر اللي بيتحدثوا عنه، دعونا مثلا أقول، لأنه العالم يعتقد أنه إنه التاريخ وقف عند 7 أكتوبر، لا، التاريخ بدأ من عام 48. أنا أعتقد 7 أكتوبر كانت ردع كل الجرائم الإسرائيلية على مدى 77 عاما. 7 أكتوبر هذه الضربة القوية التي وجهت إلى إسرائيل أنا أعتقد أعطت 3 إنجازات تاريخية كبيرة جدا. أول شيء إن هي أعادت القضية الفلسطينية. اليوم ليش كل الدول، أعطيني بس أقول لك مثل، ليش كل الدول أصبحت تعترف بفلسطين الآن؟ قبل 7 أكتوبر هل في دولة تجرأت على أن تعترف بدولة فلسطين؟ أعطيني بس مثال. الآن حصاد 7 أكتوبر هو الذي خلى كل العالم يفتح عيونه على القضية الفلسطينية ويتحركوا باتجاهها بشكل قوي، إنه الشعب الفلسطيني شعب يستحق الدولة، يستحق الحرية. الشيء الثاني، كل العالم كان يقتنع بأن دولة الاحتلال دولة ديمقراطية وجميلة ومظلومة ومضطهدة. اليوم أنا أعتقد العالم كله أصبح على قناعة إنه هذا القناع قد سقط عن وجه إسرائيل. كل العالم أصبح يتحرك ضد إسرائيل. اليوم المسيرات والمهرجانات اللي في أمريكا وبريطانيا وفرنسا وألمانيا كلها تتكلم عن الإبادة الجماعية. اليوم مين يتصور أن دولة الاحتلال أصبح رئيس وزرائها مطلوب للجنائية الدولية، وحتى رئيس أركانها مطلوب للجنائية الدولية، وأصبحت إسرائيل متهمة بالإبادة الجماعية، التطهير العرقي، كل هذه الأشياء كشفت عن إسرائيل. الشيء الثالث، أنا أعتقد بشكل واضح الذين كانوا يعتقدون بأنه هزيمة إسرائيل مسألة صعبة اليوم أصبحت أسهل ما تكون. إحنا اليوم أثبتنا من خلال 7 أكتوبر أنه إمكانية هزيمة إسرائيل مسألة ليست صعبة كما كان يتصورها البعض.
Wow, another example of Hamas's extremely powerful propaganda machine. Thank you for thinking out loud with me, Micah Halpern. Let's think out loud again next week on JBS.